The average American today finds themselves constantly tired, losing hair, and unable to achieve the physique of their dreams, no matter how hard they diet and how much they exercise, and the secret is stress. Our body's built-in survival system is stuck in 10th gear. It's actively destroying our ability to build muscle, tanking our hormones, and rotting our mental state. And the worst part is, our modern lifestyle keeps us stuck in this position all the time. Between the mass overconsumption every day of media, entertainment, news, information, it's too much. Couple that in with consuming thousands of negative toxins every single day that are rotting the body from the inside out. Hold on, don't panic, because in this video I'm covering my complete stress stack that has worked wonders for me as well as tons of other people. There's an elite list of peptides, supplements, and daily habits that can make chronic stress a thing of the past. Traditional American medicine would just shovel people on anti-anxiety medication, which is only going to end up worsening our problems. Well, in this video and on this page, we look to solve the root cause of our problems to make sure they don't happen again. So buckle up, because we're gonna go deep on chronic stress. Before we get started, it is important to note that I'm not a doctor, and nothing I say in today's video should be considered medical advice. And if you are going to follow through with anything that we go over today, make sure you're only doing so under the direct supervision of a medical specialist like the ones at otmens.com. If you're unfamiliar, otmens.com was a company I built to give access to performance medicine to everyone in the United States, not just Hollywood, not just the elite. Everybody should have access to the different forms of medicine that are out there today. So if you're interested in anything we go over, make sure you go to otmens.com for elite medical supervision. Now let's go. To understand the stack, we have to first understand what is chronic stress. When we're in a constant state of stress, it begins to alter the way our body and brain function to adapt to this survival mode. Unfortunately today, with the constant use of our phones and our modern way of life, everything is designed to capture more of our brain's attention and make it need and require more. It's a horrible dopamine incentive on the brain, especially short form content like Instagram and TikTok. Almost all the content we consume is going to be spammed with quick flashing photos and videos of the most extreme circumstances in the world that is going to put your brain into a state of stress. Our bodies and brains were never built to consume this much level of excellence all the time. We're always seeing the most beautiful venues in the world, the most attractive women of all time, the best cars, the best houses, everything all the time, all in our face. Why are you not a millionaire yet? And it creates this terrible cyclical pattern in the brain that is rotting us from the inside, and that is the elevation of our stress hormone, cortisol. Cortisol is great if you're about to get in a fight or running away from a bear. You want that adrenaline, that extra pump to get you in that survival mode. I don't want that while I'm sitting on the couch doom scrolling, or while I'm at work trying to put food on the table. For a lot of you, you started watching my videos because you wanted to improve your body or your mind in some way, shape, or form. Well, I have bad news about cortisol, and that's constantly elevated levels of cortisol completely degrade muscle growth and make it really hard to lose fat. When we have high levels of cortisol, we need more energy to fuel that stress hormone. And what happens is we don't have anywhere to pull it from, so we start pulling it directly from our muscle. Not chill. How lame is that? Then at the same time, it tells our body to store more belly fat in case we go into a famine or that we're not going to eat for several days at a time. It sucks. As for our brain and our mood, it floods our brain with cortisol, cutting off the blood directly to our prefrontal cortex. This is why we experience things like brain fog or the inability to make decisions, because our brain has literally choked itself from its ability to function. Now, for any of you who've been in this next situation, you know this one's the worst of the worst, and that is sex drive and sexual arousal. It always seems that the most attractive girl, or the one that you want to impress the most, all of a sudden you're not there all the way. You know what I'm talking about? That's not just bad luck. We're putting so much pressure on ourselves to perform because we really want to impress this girl that we end up completely destroying our blood flow to that area. When we're in physical danger, our body says reproduction is not our focus right now. We just need to stay alive. Long-term elevated cortisol tanks all hormones, testosterone, estrogen, everything. Now, a lot of people might say, oh, lowering my estrogen, that's not so bad. Well, if you didn't know, estrogen is the reason that you get an erection in the first place. It's also neuroprotective. So if you want to think or bang, you're going to need estrogen. Now, all of a sudden, you're tweaked out, no muscle, and limp. Pretty shit existence. The last area we're going to touch on is going to be the gut. For me, this is an area that's been very top of mind lately. And with a lot of the patients that come through our program, we're seeing more and more of this every day, that this has become a huge area that's been overlooked in the health and optimization realm. Elevated cortisol pulls blood away from our stomach, causing our intestinal walls to physically separate. This then leaks toxic waste directly into our bloodstream, triggering full body inflammation and an invisible war going on in our intestines. Over the next couple minutes, I'm going to give you guys the exact program that I use to bring my stress down, starting a company company was probably the most stressful thing I've ever gone through in my life. Watching my bank account basically twiddled down to zero. Actually, it got to less than zero. I was in debt. I was losing hair. I wasn't sleeping, and my body looked like shit. Now, lucky for me, I was building a company built around these treatments that I'm going to tell you guys about here today. So I was still able to access things to help me get through that time. For those of you that might be going through something difficult yourself, or you're just becoming a victim of our societal factors today, here is the ultimate stress stack. Starting with number one, I'm going to go right to the most impactful peptide that I took during this time, and that was Epithalon. If you're new to this page, Epithalon directly targets our pineal gland in our brain. The pineal gland is a tiny little pine cone shaped part of the brain, and its main job is to watch the light that enters our eyes so that it can tell what time of day it is. The reason that's important to us is when it gets dark, we want it producing melatonin. So its internal clock, that internal recognition of if it's light or dark out, we want it producing that melatonin once it's nighttime, once it's time to go to bed. Melatonin, of course, being the hormone in our body that tells us it's time to go to sleep. The problem is when we're chronically stressed, that cortisol blocks the connection between the pineal gland and the light coming in through our eyes. That process is called calcification because it's literally building calcium deposits on our pineal gland. This is going to stop that production of high quality melatonin, making it next to impossible for us to get meaningful, restful, and healing sleep. Insert Epithalon. Epithalon has an incredible ability to reset that internal clock and to decalcify our pineal gland. Imagine our pineal gland is like a home solar panel. And in order to power our brain, it needs that sunlight to take in and build that energy. Our stress is like a massive storm that blocks out the sun and then cakes over the solar panels with thick layers of mud. Now, the solar panels, even though the sun is still there, can't absorb the sunlight. Epithalon acts like a pressure washer for those solar panels, clears off all the mud, and then clears the clouds out of the sky so that we can now reabsorb that direct sunlight. In essence, that's what Epithalon is doing for our pineal gland. It's resetting it and recalibrating it back to factory settings. So it's really important that when we take this, number one, we take it right before bed because we want our body to know, okay, this is the time that I want the body to start producing that melatonin. This is the time that I want to set my internal alarm clock to be going to bed. The biggest thing I noticed is on my Whoop, my recovery is always above 90% when I'm using Epithalon, as well as shortly when I'm done with it, because my body is just back to factory settings. It's getting deep rest the way I'm supposed to, and that carries me through the rest of my day. Everything gets better. On that note, Epithalon is something that's really only advised to be used 2 or 3 times per year for no more than 20 days. So what do you use in that in-between time if you're having any problems? Well, for me, I'm moving to the second peptide on this list, and that is Selank. If you watch this page, you know I'm a huge advocate for Selank, and what it does is it modulates our GABA receptor. Our GABA receptors is what causes our brain to have anxiety or overthink or overdo anything. GABA is like the brain's internal brake pedal that says, chill out, we're doing too much. And it tells our nervous system to calm down. I personally have found a ton of benefit with this peptide because for me, especially as a business owner, someone who works 16 plus hours a day, I'm always thinking about the next solution. And I'm sure a lot of you have this problem as well, where you're always thinking about what is my next task? What is my next thing to do? Which I am absolutely all for personal development and people reaching their highest potential. But when it comes to sleep, you can't be thinking about all those problems and what you're going to do to solve them. Otherwise, you're not going to get anywhere close to meaningful, restful sleep. Selank offers that clearness of the mind that just brings all of that down and kind of silences that inner voice for the next 6 to 8 hours, thus allowing us getting into the right mental state for sleep, which for a lot of you, you probably don't realize how big of an impact that would make, even just on your mental well-being, let alone your actual stress levels. The reason I also like Selank is it's actively increasing BDNF, which is brain-derived neurotrophic factor, while you're sleeping. So not only is it solving the problem of our overactive brain, but it's also making our brain more capable in that restful period. Number 3, I'm going to do this one fairly quickly because if you're not somebody who works in a very stressful or high intensity workplace, then this really isn't all that applicable to you. But if you are somebody who needs to make high level decisions all the time and you're working all day and night, I would recommend something like Semax. Now, I'm not telling you to use this because of the higher cognitive output benefits, but I am telling you to use it because it can actually help people who struggle with chronic stress during the workday. It can make those decisions feel a little bit more narrow as opposed to wide open. It does this by targeting our brain's acetylcholine system, as well as, don't know if I'm saying this right, but the enkephalins, which controls our focus, memory retention, as well as pain management. That pain management piece is key because it's going to stop you from thinking about all of the negatives. The next peptide combo, which I have found has incredible application across a million different uses, and that is the Wolverine Blend, BPC 157 and TB 500. The main purpose of this is to clean up all of the mayhem that internal stress has caused throughout our body, healing the damaged physical tissues in our body, reducing the inflammation, re-sewing together the lining of our gut. Because all of those problems that the stress created in the first place, only create a reason to have more stress, which then causes more problems. I've truly found that BPC 157 and TB 500 are probably the most untapped peptide combination on the marketplace today. Even though they're the most popular, I don't think anybody's using them to their full potential. If you're interested in more of that, I just filmed a video last week about all of the applications that this has on the body, the brain, the skin, everything in between. I'm gonna link that video in the description if you wanna watch that one next. Now, before I get into the supplements and lifestyle enhancements, there is one more section that I wanna hit on, and that is our mitochondrial and cellular efficiency. Those of you that know this page know that I had a huge experiment with this earlier this year, and I have found nothing but more evidence to support that this is probably the most important function of the body. And the way to improve it is with SS31 and MOTS-c. In order for any function of our body to operate at the level we want it to, every single one starts with mitochondria. Mitochondria, we know, of course, powerhouse of the cell. It's in every cell of our body. And anytime we want to do anything, whether that's build muscle, lose fat, think better, sleep better, bang better, whatever you want to do, it all starts with mitochondria. Mitochondria are going to be the energy source for all of the cellular function in our body. If we don't have that energy force, we can't do anything that we're going to look to do. We can't combat our stress. We can't use our brains properly. We can't use anything in our body if we don't have the cellular battery, if we don't have the cellular currency to do it. But now let's get into the part that everybody messes up, which is the supplementation with the peptides. A lot of people think I'm just going to take these peptides and they're going to be magic and I'm not going to need to do anything else. Well, you need to take the proper supplements as well as you need to change your lifestyle habits if you want these things to really work. When it comes to supplementation on this, there's a core group of 4 that are going to be your baseline, and then there's the more specific ones. But at the root of this, you're going to need magnesium, vitamin D3K2, fish oil, and methylated B complex. Magnesium, as a lot of us know, is going to also calm our nervous system. It's going to calm our mental state. This is especially going to give the Selank a stable environment to work in. Vitamin D3K2 is the master hormone duo, which is also going to give the Epithalon the ability to flip the on switch in the first place, because those are going to promote the exact genes necessary for the hormones that Epithalon is trying to create. Fish oil, specifically with EPA and DHA, is going to lubricate our cellular walls, thus removing inflammatory rust so that the peptides that we're sending in to change them can get through effectively. I've said this before on this page and I'll say it again, inflammation is the killer of all peptides that needs to be stopped at all costs. Then, of course, the methylated B complex is going to be everything we need for anything focus related or brain power. When it comes to additional supplements for nighttime, that's going to help get us in that deeper restful state, a few things that have worked really well for me are the following. L-theanine I find incredible, which gets the brain into the alpha state, which is the first stage before we want to get into the delta state, which is going to be our deepest level of sleep. But like anything, the 1,000-mile journey starts with step 1. Glycine, I love. Glycine physically cools the body and drops our internal temperature, making the body easier and more adept at falling asleep. This next one I can never pronounce, so I'm going to show it so that you guys can see what I'm talking about. Phosphatidylserine. I don't know how you say that shit, but it works. Now, the last phase of this protocol that might sound like it's the least important, you could make an argument that it is the most important part, and that is your lifestyle changes and daily habits. Yes, all of these extra treatments are going to help make a big difference, but if you are not putting your body in the state of trying to be more relaxed or doing the things necessary to manually bring down your stress levels, these peptides can only add fuel to the fire. They cannot create the fire. For me and a lot of people that we've helped, a few practices have gone above and beyond. The first is consistent wake up and rest times. The time that you wake up and the time that you go to bed, if we can make that consistent, for me, that's I try to be in bed at 10 p.m., asleep by 10:30, and I try to wake up between 7 and 8 a.m. every single day. I do this knowing that I'm definitely going to get up to piss at least once, and then it's going to take me another 15 minutes after that to fall back asleep, and the time that it takes to fully get into restful sleep. Now, with my lifestyle, I don't always get to stick to those time frames. Sometimes I'm going to bed at 11 at midnight and I'm waking up at 6 a.m. or 6:30, and I can feel it on those days. It's a huge difference. The more that we can tell our brain that this is when it's time to make melatonin and this is when it's time to get up and spike that morning cortisol, only for a brief period. The next step that makes a huge difference for me that I almost never get to follow is if you can figure out a way to not look at screens for 60 whole minutes before you go to bed, a world of difference. My compromise is I do like to wear blue light blocking glasses. I find them very effective at counterbalancing a lot of those harmful lights that come through the eyes. Same thing, if our pineal gland is seeing light flash through it all the time, especially right before bed, how is it supposed to know to make melatonin if it's still getting fed light all night? That much blue light before bed also creates a massive cortisol spike, and we want our cortisol to spike first thing in the morning and then taper down throughout the day. The last thing we want to do is be scrolling social media, something that's going to spike our cortisol right before bed. A practice that I've personally loved is digestion walks, or boredom walks as some people call it, where you just go outside in the sun, preferably is my favorite, and and then just go for a walk, 20 minutes, move around a little bit. I'm not going to tell you to do regular basic diet and exercise. I think a lot of you guys know that already. But if you can find time, especially right after meals, to go for a walk, you will notice a tremendous difference in the quality of rest you get. Our systems are so constantly overstimulated that it's important to disconnect and unplug sometimes. So guys, if you like finding ways to improve the body and improve the mind in any form and facet, that is exactly what I post on this page. 2 times a week, I'm putting out a new video. So definitely make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on post notifications so that you don't miss any new information. And I will see you guys in the next one.